came out, where my co-author, Mr. Joy Bhattacharya, he wanted to bring together something, to put together something that would, help the Dhoni fans in us, and there are lots of them all over the country, to get a piece of MS Dhoni, as now that he has retired. And so Joy sir got in touch with me, and we discussed on what can we do. And the challenge was that Dhoni is someone a lot of people have written on. There is a book, the biography, there are several biographies of Dhoni already in the market. So what is it that we do? So one thing that we realized while talking about MS Dhoni is how fondly we remember so many of his knocks, right? And one thing that came out of it was that, okay, we need to capture that, because there are several books that tell the story of MS Dhoni, his rise from being a Ranchi boy to the captain of Indian team who lifted the World Cup. And there are several books that delve into the leadership of MS Dhoni. But somewhere, his batting gets lost in that. The fact that, for someone to be batting at number 6, to score to 10,000 ODI runs and have an average of more than 50, all of that somewhere gets lost in that. So we realize that whenever we talk about MS Dhoni, a lot of the discussions, we very fondly talk about his innings, his knocks. So we wanted to capture that. Now, again, what is the point of capturing those knocks? We all, as a kid, I grew up watching those knocks myself. But now with time, to be able to place them in context, that's what the different attempt was. But that's not all. The book evolved as we, started thinking what more can we do? Because we realized that this doesn't capture Dhoni the way we want to. And that's when we decided that, okay, this can be one part of the book. The other part, for the other part, we will get people who have seen Dhoni up close and personal, who have understood him, who have tried to, understand his thought process, and we will get them to talk about MS Dhoni. And that's where so many people, two of them are here, Mr. Sharda ma'am is here, Jeet sir is also here. So that's when these people came along and they contributed to the book.
So this book is a 360-degree view of Dhoni, former teammate and many other people who've been associated with Dhoni one way or the other, and we are proud to have two of them out here, right out here, Sharda and Jeet. Sharda, let's start with you. When Joy and Amit approached you to write a chapter on Dhoni, which hat did you wear? A journalist, fan, a cricket fan, Dhoni fan? Which hat did you decide to wear, and did you keep changing hats?
Hi, hello everyone. Glad to see that Dhoni is still pulling in an audience. We are just sort of the bit players in this. You don't really switch off your journalist hat. When you write, when you watch as a fan, but when you write, you always write as a journalist, and you try and be as factual. And even if it means putting emotion into it, it's done deliberately. So it's almost, it's the formula that I follow. So you can't write as a fan, because then you'll just write, just glory, sort of glory stories that I call them. So it was as a journalist that I did take to it, because he's a very important figure in the history and the development of Indian cricket. And there is so little that was so little that was authentic about it, that you wanted to tell people that, look, this is the man we saw, and this is what he was in this environment, and this is what our idea of him is. It may not be right, it may not be accurate, because we won't know, but this is how I'm saying it. So that's what it was.
You would have already interviewed Dhoni in press conferences, right? So did you say that I'll have to step out of those boxes and create a new box? Because a natural tendency, if I were in your position, I would have tended to sort of pick up those points and say, I think I have the points now. It would have impeded my fresh thinking process in writing for this. Did you face that challenge while writing this chapter?
Not in the sense of only Dhoni from the press conference conversations that we have, because Dhoni was quite a unique figure in that he was literally the first Indian cricketer who he didn't think much of the media. He held them at bay. But in a press conference, you could ask him any question, and you could call him Mahi. It was no big deal. You could ask him a question, he would answer it in great detail. So there is much more that's happening here rather than just a question from the media and a response from the press. And I had met him before his sort of, I want to deal with the media phase. I'd met him for a little, very brief period of time, and he was a different person then. But then he became captain, they won the World Cup, I was there at that event as well. He was different then. So I wanted to talk about that phase of what we saw, or what I saw as an individual, and what happened over success and so on. So that's how I decided to look at the whole career track of Dhoni to the public eye.
Excellent. Jeet, your association with Mahi has been unique. You've been a player's agent for him right at the beginning. First of all, tell us, what does a player agent do? What is his role? First, tell us that, because I don't know how many of us are educated. I'm not, at least. So I would like to learn from you.
I think firstly, it's befitting that we are discussing a book on Dhoni in Ranchi, his hometown. Though I don't know how much time he actually spends here anymore. I believe he spends a lot of his time in Chennai. But coming back to the role of a play agent, and I was actually talking to Sharda a little while back, I think it's, so what you traditionally know of as a player agent, especially in sports like, say, football, you hear of these big agents who do big deals, these transfers and all that. In India, that doesn't happen. Because even in IPL, which is the biggest, private league in the sense when you're not playing for your country, the BCCI has done it in such a way that a player can't be represented by his agent. So what happens, therefore, is, to put it very simply, an agent in India can only work for a player for endorsements or brand promotions, appearances, etc. He has nothing to do with the player, the playing money that a player earns.
He doesn't get a cut out of when he signs up for a particular team
only
or a
for
club.
Indian players. So, but all the international players who come and play here, their agents all earn. But this is BCCI. They've done so. And Indian players, if they can get away by not paying their agents, they're only too happy. So that is one. To answer your question, as I said, a player agent therefore will try and only look into his non-playing earning ability. It could be endorsements, it could be his equipment, it could be appearances, it could be other forms of promotion. Today, people get associated with products and all, where you kind of leverage your name and stuff like that. So those are the kind of things that one can do. Having said that, IPL has made a big change in what a player agent was known as. Because pre-IPL, no matter who the player was, so if you go back to 2000 to 2008 when IPL started, that era, or mid-90s to 2008, that era was, no matter who you were, so if you were Sachin Tendulkar, who was at that point the biggest player, or you were Ashish Nehra or Harbhajan Singh, or whatever level you were, Lakshman, Dravid, Ganguly, Sehwag, everybody had a price point. So if you were a brand on the other side or a company on the other side, you could, depending on what your ability or your budgets were, you could engage with anybody at different price points. When IPL came, the whole game changed. It became the Western model, Western sports model, where you then engage with teams. There'll be one or two superstars, always. So even if you see in football, you'll have a Messi, you'll have a Ronaldo, etc., who'll have individual endorsements. But others, people get associated with teams. Similarly in India, so there was, Sachin was kind of, well, he'd already, and Dhoni was rising when IPL came. So Dhoni continued to be the number one. I mean, it was Sachin handing over the baton to Dhoni, and then Dhoni to Virat Kohli. But if you see in the last 15 years or 10 years, that is where the endorsement ends. So today, if you're managing Rohit Sharma or Lokesh Rahul or whoever, there's not much endorsements that these players get. So this has been a major change in the way the agents function.
So, can you share a little bit about your personal experience of having managed Dhoni?
Yeah, it's actually quite strange. You know, what happened was, we were in the business of in-stadia advertising. We were not into player management, but we thought, you know, maybe that's an area we should explore. I think it was in the year 2004, India A was touring Kenya. Dhoni had gone on that tour. He'd done well, actually. I think Srinath was there. He was there as a match referee or commentator, right? And I remember somewhere we kind of knew him, and so he came back and there was one particular photograph that appeared in Times of India those days, where he had this long hair, blondish long hair, and he was doing well. And then we checked with Srinath, and he said, yeah, this guy is good. And then I remember we kind of wanted to meet him. Jharkhand had come to Kolkata to play a Vijay Hazare Trophy game. And they were staying at a relatively small hotel called Broadway. And I remember talking, I had known the Jharkhand Cricket Association chief, Amitabh Chaudhary, and I requested him to set up an appointment. And then one thing led to another, we met him and all that. And then that year, in the winter, in December, India toured Bangladesh for 3 ODIs. And he had an inauspicious start. I think he had 0, 6 and 12. One of them was not out, but basically 18 runs. And so we were supposed to be his managers, but nothing much was happening. And then he got a chance April against Pakistan. And first game was in Kochi. They should announce, I think teams were 2-2 games at a time. And the second game was in Vizag, where John Wright, many people have a misnomer that Saurav Ganguly sent him at number 3. Actually, no. It was John Wright who sent him.
At number 3.
Yeah. He got 148, and then, you know, we actually didn't approach people. And then I remember getting a call from Pepsi. We heard you manage Dhoni, why haven't you called us? I said, well, because this is his first knock, and if we rush 2 people, I mean, you know. And then obviously we built his brand slowly over the next 4 years. We did things which were a little unusual for agents at that time. We looked at his persona, we looked at his profile.
Grooming in terms of, you know.
Tried to go to brands that would be a good fit rather than rejected brands. Like we rejected brands which we thought would not do good. For example, a banyan brand. You know, but we went to a fan brand because he had long hair and convinced them, why don't you do a TVC where, you know, you link it to his hair flying. We went to, it was quite well known that he drank milk. So, we approached a milk person. Well, in the sense it became biscuits, Parle-G. But we did Amul, we had approached. We went to Lafarge Cement. Those days, cement, nobody endorsed. We said he has strength. So, you know, we had some, the obvious ones, the colas and the Reeboks, and, you know, those were anyway there.
Anyway there, right.
We went, I remember we went to Lafarge, we went to Orient Fans. We went to NDTV. A media house had never got a player.
Okay.
And we spoke to NDTV, and not again just to say watch NDTV. That's not what we want as an endorsement. We actually sat with them. What are the things that they would like him? So that's how things like, you know, his appearance in a Jai Jawan show, his love with the army.
Army, yeah, right.
Things like India Questions. He would do more shows and all that. So we did a lot of things which are a little different from regular agents in those.
Very good. Very nice to hear. Amit, Ranchi here, Dhoni has been built as a small town boy. First of all, I don't agree that Ranchi is a small town, because being from Calcutta, Ranchi was the most exotic, affordable destinations for holidays, getaways, where you could, encounter far lesser mercury and all that. So I never saw Ranchi as a small town. It was an exotic getaway. But okay, assuming that I go with people when they say it's a small town. Now, in an age like this, you know, where there's a National Cricket Academy and there's a very well-grounded domestic cricket circuit out here in India, and with telecommunications and equipment and all that, are there small towns anymore? I mean, aren't people scouting, especially the coming of IPL, aren't people scouting for talent anywhere and everywhere? So does the small town matter at all?
The small town, as you said, yes, in today's time, the IPL teams...
Can you hear Amit? Or no, we can't. Yeah, use it.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, of course, today because of the IPL, the teams are definitely scouting everywhere and getting players from
And that
everywhere.
too for a game like cricket. I can understand for volleyball, maybe you have to scout around. Huh? Yeah, carry on.
Yeah,
sorry.
but today what matters is what mystery spinner can you get? Someone who has not been seen by the others, someone who has not been profiled by the others. So that's why people are actually going into, you know, very, I would say, yeah, the small towns and getting people from there. But when we talk about small town, Ranchi as a small town in the early 2000s, maybe, of course, as you said, that it was an exotic town for people from Kolkata. But what we are talking about is the cricket map of India, which is, if you look at it, Mumbai, Delhi, late 90s,
Bangalore.
it's a lot of Karnataka. So yeah, and in that equation, if you see, Bihar, all these years, I mean, Dhoni used to represent Bihar, right? So all these years, barely anyone came from Bihar to the national side. So that's why the small town phenomena that, you know, we associate with MS Dhoni now. And yeah, I think that has gripped the nation. And then, of course, the IPL came, and IPL has completely changed things for people from small towns, because they now see that, okay, maybe if not Indian team, we have a chance to represent an IPL side. So that has definitely happened. And that's why one of the reasons why the Dhoni story is inspiring is because of how a city like Ranchi, or as I said, he used to represent Bihar back then, someone from Bihar playing for India, going on to captain it, having such a long, illustrious career, that makes for a very inspiring story.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sharda, in your chapter, you make a very interesting observation about the difference in Dhoni when he was in blue and when he was in yellow. And the occasions when he was in yellow, there are evidences of when he was not so cool. Normally when he's captain cool, there have been times when he has been not so cool, and that's all human. We also lose our cool sometimes. Was there another Dhoni that was not so evident that you're trying to bring out?
I think that sort of Dhoni in yellow and Dhoni in blue are almost two different kind of people. Because one of the features, so Saurav Ganguly's captaincy was followed by Dhoni, right? So, and it's a complete personality opposite. So Saurav Ganguly would be waving his hands and yelling and looking angry, and Dhoni would just be calm. And then it became the thing, it became Captain Cool, it became his nickname, it became sort of representative of who he was. And everyone said, I remember Mukul Kesavan said he's an adult Indian captain, because all the other Indian captains in his mind were sort of a little bit juvenile and childish in how they behaved when they were captaining on the field, not their batting or bowling or anything. So, and in the, when he played for CSK, in CSK yellow, it's completely different, because there are no questions asked of an IPL captain. An IPL captain represents the city, he represented Chennai, they were successful, and he could do what he wanted. He could be who he wanted to be. This is my psychological interpretation or whatever it is, because we would not know, he would not say. But when you saw him doing things that he wouldn't do in whites, I mean, we lost a test series in England 4-0, which had not happened for a long time. And he was Captain Cool, and he was very calm, and we were all tearing our hair out in absolute fury that what has happened. He got angry, he argued with the umpire. That was very much not him. So if there are two of these kind of people, there's one that he's happy to present to the world when he's India captain, and the burdens and the responsibilities that come from being India captain, and what he was successful with. The 2011 victory, I think in the World Cup, a lot of that has to do with the fact that his team meetings are not very long, not very complicated, very, very relaxed. Basically to say that losing is fine, it's not an issue. You know, it's okay, I'll take the flak. That was the sort of India approach that we saw. And in the IPL, it was different, you know. I mean, for me to read his mind is a bit too ambitious, but you're seeing visually what you saw.
Yep.
So maybe there was another person that he is, but doesn't want to talk about, you know.
Yeah. And I think it's analysis like these that has enriched the book, Amit. You know, the contra views, the alternate views, the views that we don't normally associate with. I think those are things that have enriched this book.
Yes, that is one reason why when we were writing this book, we decided to not really approach Dhoni and talk to him. There is another reason I'll tell you. Because when I was, the editorial process of writing this book also included reading a lot of MS Dhoni from wherever I could, from old newspaper records and all the biographies that have been written on him. And there are interesting inconsistencies. So very famous thing that is associated with MS Dhoni is him going bald right after the 2011 World Cup, right? So there are two biographies, I'm not taking the names. One of them says that he boarded a chartered flight to Tirupati right after the final and donated his hair, and by morning he was back and posing with the trophy. This is right after the World Cup final, 2011, April 2nd. Another biography says that, you know, he went into the washroom while the team was celebrating, and 15 minutes later, everyone was stunned because he had his head shaved. So we realized that, you know, it is very difficult to get that exact Dhoni out, and that's why...
Because from Johannesburg to Tirupati, it's quite a distance.
No, we are talking about 2011. He went bald after 2011.
Of 2011,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
the Mumbai, okay.
Yes,
Even Mumbai to Tirupati is not that close that...
That's what one of the
Gone and
biographies...
got a haircut.
Private jet.
That's private jet. That's what one of the biographies states. And that's why we did not want to do a biography, because we realized that, okay, there could be something that is not right here. And that is why we wanted to bring views from every spectrum. And a reason why we got someone like Lakshmipati Balaji to talk about MS Dhoni is because Lakshmipati Balaji was there when Dhoni was making that 148. He was just a newbie at that time, Dhoni, while Balaji had established himself in the 1 year that he had played. And then Balaji was also a very important part of Chennai Super Kings. He was the bowling coach till last year. So all these people have seen MS Dhoni from very close quarters. And at the same time, like, MS Dhoni and media is a relationship that has been discussed a lot, and that is why we wanted to get someone like Sharda ma'am and talk about it. So
Absolutely,
it wants to capture MS Dhoni from different angles. We did not want to deconstruct MS Dhoni because we have realized that there are pitfalls to that endeavor. So we don't want to do that. We definitely want people reading this book to, you know, understand some of the best innings that he played and also look at MS Dhoni through different eyes.
Excellent. 2007, okay, I think both of you had to play a role out there after that India's first round exit from, I mean, I'm not saying you had a role to play in India's exit. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the way, you know, people sort of took to Dhoni, right? I mean, they went after him. I think people stoned his house out here in Jharkhand, and then, you know, the media was chasing him for all the wrong reasons and all that. Now, is that the reason why he distanced himself? Now, it's not the media that threw stones at his house. Maybe someone else did. But the media was obviously going after him, right? Which they do. Do you think that's the reason why he distanced himself? And the other thing, Jeet, as an agent, you would also have had a role in sort of somewhere being protective of him at what was a career low point, albeit a temporary one. So I just wanted your perspective in terms of, from a media perspective and from someone who's his agent. I wanted your perspective, what exactly happened out there?
So the 2007 World Cup defeat in the West Indies, I don't think Dhoni took as much of the blame as, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really ridiculous to say someone has come after your house and you're saying he didn't take as much blame as in someone else's house. That's rubbish. I take my words back. I'm saying there was this furious response, including, you know, Parliament and all this bakwas that happens and TV channels and, you know, that whole rubbish that was there. And it found its way here. This was television at a time where Indian players could be criticized and they had Maut Ka Mujrim, no, Match Ka Mujrim, and they had this kind of bakwas programming. So there was this whole culture being built up to go after these guys. Instead of going after netas, you are going after cricket players. Well done. So, he must have, as a young player, we assume, I mean, when I was writing that piece, I spoke to a couple of people who are close-ish to him, we think, and they said that is probably what bothered him. You know, and I remember Mohammad Kaif at one point, early in his career, he said the same thing. he said, you know, yaar, aap acha karoge to aap hero, or aap fail ho gaye to I will just go after you. So you have to be, sort of don't go up and down. That was Kaif's sort of assessment. Also another small town boy, if Allahabad is a small town. So I think that Dhoni found that medium and said, okay, this is what I'm going to be. And maybe that played his part with how he was going to look at the media and said, all of them belong to this species of vultures or hyenas or whatever. Haan.
Jeet, you had to really save him, right, at that time?
See, if you look at Indian cricket over the last, I kind of started working with Indian cricket in the year 98 end. And I saw in 2001, the whole betting scandal, it had reached a nadir, right? I mean, everybody said everything was fixed, and Azharuddin, Jadeja, you know, these people got
Prabhakar,
hauled up and all that. But within a year, the Australia tour happened where we had that famous victories, Australia and India that is, we had those famous victories at Eden Gardens and Chennai, and we won the series. One more year later, we were joint winners of the Champions Trophy. NatWest happened before that, Ganguly's jersey opening thing. So I've seen in India, cricket has it's like a sinusoidal curve.
Exactly.
Right. So the same thing, when 2003 we were runner-up. 2007, this incident you're talking about, of course stones were being thrown and all, but I always believe, and even then I believed, and I told, you know, it's a matter of another good result and all, which actually happened in September, October that year when we won the T20 World Cup.
Absolutely.
So coming back to this particular incident, yeah, there was all this stone throwing and all, and obviously nobody likes all that. Players were rattled. Ranchi didn't have too many flights, I think, and media had got wind that he would normally come via Calcutta and then go to Ranchi, fly to Ranchi. So there was a huge media contingent at the airport, and some people. So we had anticipated all that, and we kind of managed to get a car, get him not out through where the normal people come out, and we actually took him to the Tollygunge Club in Calcutta, where he actually stayed for 4 or 5 days. And media thought, since he hadn't taken the connecting flight, that they were thinking he's probably going to Howrah station and he's going to get into a train and go. So all that happened. But yes, he was, you know, it did have an impact, because even those 4 odd days that he was there, I remember he would not come out of his room. Tollygunge Club is quite a nice club. It's got a golf course and all. He wouldn't even come out of his room at night, throughout the day. He would only tell me, send me a car in the evening. He would just go, my driver would actually just drive him around Calcutta. That's all he wanted to do. I think he stopped once or twice to have a roll somewhere. But he just wanted those few days to himself to kind of settle down, and then of course he went back to Ranchi, by which time
Amit.
things had died.
Yeah, so I just want us to understand that the journey of Dhoni from 2004 December to 2007, okay? Dhoni's was a meteoric rise, and something that we had not seen in Indian cricket, at least in that decade. Like, we had Yuvraj, Viru, Kaif, these were, and Zaheer, Harbhajan, but theirs was not a meteoric rise. Dhoni's was a meteoric rise, and just a few weeks ago, I was going through this, you know, before the World Cup comes out, they come out with this trophy book sort of a thing, which players to watch out for. And out there, because of the way Dhoni had performed in 2005 and 6, Dhoni was the player everyone was looking for, right? So the high that he achieved in those years, and then the fall that happened because of 3 matches, just 3 matches, right? It's not an entire tournament of failure. 3 matches,
Not
and
even
he's
3,
painted a
2.
will.
We lost to Bangladesh. We lost to Sri Lanka. We had a big victory against Bermuda.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Dhoni did not perform in any of the matches, all point taken. But yeah, just because of 3 matches, this person experiences this. And now that's where you're, you know, coming from, say, a place like Ranchi. He has not experienced all of this before. So I think that definitely had an effect. And there is a second point that I would like to make, is about the relationship that Indian dressing room had, the one from 2000s to 2005-6, with the media, with the journalists, and a lot of leaks used to happen because of the relationship some of the people in the media had with the major names in the team. And Dhoni was definitely not of that system. And when he became the captain, when 2007 the T20 World Cup was won, it was a very different young team, not a lot of senior players with their connections to the media. So when he won that World Cup and he realized that, okay, our team camaraderie is very important, that cannot be sacrificed for whatever connections people have. I think that also led to him closing out the team to the media. Okay. And that is something that Virat Kohli also followed. Yeah. Right? So that happened because you see, right before the 2007 World Cup, 2005 when the star of Dhoni was on the rise, was when all the Greg Chappell scandal happens. Everything is getting leaked to the media. Just imagine the kind of effect it had on the team morale. And if you cut that out, that's a different team that played in 2007 World T20. And it was a young team, did not have pressure, did not have all these...
no expectations from them.
Exactly. So I think these two factors, in my opinion and my understanding, had a huge impact on the relationship that Dhoni would have in the coming years with the media.
Excellent. Jeet, yeah, yes, you were saying something.
Yeah, the team that went to South Africa, the 2007 team, was actually like a B team. See, BCCI was opposed to T20 cricket. They were the last to really embrace T20 cricket. India had a long tour of England that summer, and all the seniors were rested. And he took this almost a B team. I mean, the young players, and some of them hardly had played cricket at any international level. And against all odds, they won. And then I always say that journey from Chhatrapati Shivaji Airport to Wankhede Stadium actually changed the commerce of Indian cricket forever, because that made Lalit Modi fast track IPL.
Exactly.
If you think about it, IPL happened in roughly 6 months. Or if
Just
you,
after
if
that,
you go by team owners and all, even less time.
Even less.
Because there was an ICL, people forget today, that used to happen for the
Subhash Chandra's venture. Yeah.
So Lalit Modi fast-tracked. IPL happened in 2008. McCullum scored 158 on the first day, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Practically, just the way that Kapil represented India's ODI cricket, okay, he can say he's the Bhishma Pitama, the father of India's ODI cricket ascent. Dhoni's contribution to IPL and T20 in general has been phenomenal, and it started with Mr. Srinivasan. What exactly clicked out there between Srinivasan and Dhoni? I mean, I'm sure there were, or was it that Dhoni was so unquestionably the big name in T20 because he had given India's biggest victory, arguably, in the last 24 years, if you take out the NatWest victory?
You want me to see?
Sharda, I mean...
what happened is, again, you have to go back to how IPL started. So, IPL started with Lalit Modi conceiving it. He thought of this city franchisees, and he thought of an icon player for each city, which was pre-decided. Now, fortunately on hindsight, fortunately for Mr. Srinivasan, who had bought the Chennai team, they didn't have an icon player. See, all the others they had one, while you can't question Tendulkar with Mumbai, or at that time Calcutta had Ganguly
with...
Sehwag was Delhi, I think Yuvraj was Punjab.
Yeah.
Everybody, Lakshman
Dravid was Bangalore.
Maybe Lakshman, Hyderabad may not even have wanted in T20 format.
Correct.
But Chennai was the only one that didn't have.
Right.
I think Bangalore had Dravid.
Dravid Kumble, yeah.
So one player was fixed. You don't have to buy him in the auction. So Mr. Srinivasan went into the auction knowing that he could buy an auction player, because the rule was that the icon player would be paid 15% more than the highest paid player of that team.
Okay.
So it was kind of, every team knew that if I bought somebody at this price, over and above that I have to pay that much. So Mr. Srinivasan went with a clean chit. And obviously Dhoni was then the World Cup winning captain. So it made sense to buy him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He did that, and look, there's nothing more to
it's
say.
It's history, and rest they say, as they say, is history.
They didn't win the first year, but if you take the consistency of Chennai Super Kings in the first 7-8 years of IPL, they would have won it three times, I think, or twice, runner-up another 3 times. So they were always a very, very consistent side. The other thing about Mr. Srinivasan, which people may not always know, see, he did through India Cements, he used to always cultivate, there was a mahal of cricket. You know, a lot of India players who were not from Chennai would go and play for India Cement. He had a system there, like Rahul Dravid used to praise it. So many people have praised it. And he brought the same kind of
culture.
You know, the way management in the IPL team. And he let his people run it. So, you know, minimum interference. He was used to running a cricket team almost before the others.
Yeah. Sharda, Sachin, Sehwag, Dravid, Ganguly, Virat, you've interacted with all of them, right? How was Dhoni different?
Dhoni and Virat are similar in the sense that all you get of them is what you ask in a press conference, basically. That's what the whole thing is. What he was talking about, that there were leaks and there was all this kind of stuff, of course there were. That was the way our rapport was with players. And I will not name people who are very good at leaking, but all journalists will know who I'm talking about. There was a smaller group of journalists as well. So television was just growing. So you didn't have sort of 20 people, 20 channels with one reporter, one camera guy, and one sound guy traveling as well all the time. So there was a certain informality, and you were able to get to know the people better. You were able to reach out for not scandalous information, just information, you know. I remember I was doing a piece on, so in the 90s, Tendulkar was the star and the icon, and he was very quiet and very reserved, and he very rarely gave interviews and so on. So it was like an achievement that, okay, Sachin Tendulkar has spoken to you, because he'll speak to a big publication or whatever it was. So I interviewed him in 93, and then I had to get a quote from him. I didn't think it was going to be possible. But I called up and said, I need you to, I want you to say something about VVS Lakshman. Will you? He said, yes, of course. And he was able to talk to me about Lakshman and give me some great information and whatever it was. So you had that kind of a rapport. But Dhoni built this distance where he said that, that there should be this omerta of players and whatever. And what that means is that other than the sort of the scandalous bits, which eventually you have to tell cricketers, listen, we'll get to know. No matter what you say or you don't say, we'll hear about it. It'll reach us. Or you are not able to tell the reader what that person really was like, So you're watching commentary, you're watching things, and they're shouting, Mahi maar raha hai, and Captain Cool, and helicopter, and excitement. 25 years from now, how do you tell someone who's reading what the phenomena of MS Dhoni was? It'll not come out in these little video clips. It'll come out through words. But I don't think cricketers give whatever about what it looks like at this point in time. The world is different. So that's the thing that we feel that we missed out on. And it doesn't mean that Dhoni should speak to me or Kohli should speak to me. Whoever they speak to, it should be open, honest, and truthful. But maybe now, because of, and it happens everywhere. I have not read a Messi or a Ronaldo interview that has opened their heart up to anyone. I think tennis players are better at it than football players. So maybe that's just the nature of the beast, that this cricket has become big. It's become a sport where brand comes before, access, and access journalism then becomes the thing, right? And now access is shut off. So we'll write what we want to write,
Is it true that Dhoni doesn't have a mobile phone? I've read somewhere, and I could be completely wrong.
No, he does have, but it is true that he's very, very inaccessible. I mean, even when he was in the Indian team, it was well known that it was very, very difficult to reach him.
Okay.
I mean, he would have
if he
a
has
phone,
an
but
Instagram handle, he would, in all likelihood, have a mobile, right? So, I don't know. I just read it somewhere again.
Instagram handles and all these things of a lot of these people are not managed by them. So it
True.
doesn't mean he's posting on the phone. They have teams, digital teams who are doing it.
Got it.
But he would have a phone, I would imagine.
Completely agree on Dhoni's immense contribution to IPL cricket and cricket in general. But also, I felt there was a brand manager, as what you said, there is someone managing Instagram pages or something. There was also some brand manager, I don't know who he was, who was managing Dhoni's gradual exit from the global cricketing scene, starting from 2014. He retired from one form of cricket, and then another, and then another, and then, so it was spread over 5-6 years. to give a very gradual, so it was like a well choreographed sort of an exit, and nothing wrong about it. It's good. Do you think, I mean, and from your perspective and outside in perspective, because I wouldn't know, so do you think the whole thing, I mean, normally people when they retire, but his retirement happened over a period of 5-6 years. I've always found it a bit strange, or am I reading too much into it? I just wanted your views.
No.
No?
I don't think that has been managed. It just happened. And he's the kind of person who would just take a decision. He would just take a decision. So his Test cricket retirement, as much as a shock because it was the middle of a series in Australia, was a decision he took. I mean, look, as she said, we had lost 0-4. I mean, 0-4, 0-4. It wasn't always going well. And also, you know, he played all three forms of the game, keeper, and it does take a toll. And obviously, Test cricket, if we had to give up something, Test cricket would have been the easiest one from a workload perspective. Then he had 2 more formats, but as he started losing his ability to be that finisher and all, obviously T20, eventually stats don't lie, strike rates don't lie.
Absolutely.
So he knew that if he didn't give up, he'd be asked to give up. And eventually he thought he'd finish off on a high with the World Cup, I think. And then just pursued the 50-over World Cup. So to answer your question, I don't think it was managed.
Okay, got it. No, it just appeared like that, and I was wrong, obviously, because I'm not an insider to either media or, you know, being a player's agent or whatever. Just one question. Now, Ranchi is no more a small town, okay? Especially after Dhoni. So is it that people are going to actually come and scout for more talent, because I'm sure they'll expect to find more Dhonis. Just the way that after Kapil Dev, Chandigarh was not a small town. And after Saurav Ganguly, Bengal was not a neglected state anymore, right? People actually started getting more players from here. Though there were talents out here in Bengal, it hadn't happened to come out before Saurav Ganguly. So do you see something like that happening out here in Ranchi, where people are going to be convinced that there are more Dhonis out here? Is that good for the state? I mean, that would be good for the state, but what's your view? That's my view.
That's obvious. They will come to places like this. And like you're saying, that there is so much of scouting that happens now. I know that there are teams that have 8-9 scouts going out everywhere. And it's as much sort of the pride and belonging to the place that Dhoni came from, that it's sort of Dhoni's town, Dhoni's hometown, his city, as it is about finding an avenue to making a career in sport, in the richest sport in the country. So it's that. So there's the Saurav Tiwari story as well, who was sort of, you know, seen as the next Dhoni. You know, the long hair and the whole thing. So there will be more people like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
there will be. It's not that there was not talent before, but it took a long time for them to reach where they could, and now people are coming to see them. For example, why did Shami have to go from UP or Muradabad or wherever to Bengal, you know, to find his way? So there's all that that's happening, and the access and the avenues are better, but Ranchi will always be thought of as Dhoni's town. Yeah. You meet anyone, he says, where are you from, Ranchi? And you say, oh, Dhoni, and they're damn happy. Yeah.
He has really put the Ranchi on the world map, and the awesome revenue dollar, if you just put a dollar value to Dhoni in terms of what he has generated because of his sheer brand power and what he's done for IPL and the franchise, and India as well.
Generated for himself or for Ranchi?
No, for Ranchi, for the IPL, for Indian cricket, it's amazing. I mean, in the process you make a little bit of money, but what he has done for cricket, what he has done for Ranchi, what he has done for India and IPL, I would say it's awesome in my opinion.
Just one thing that I would...
Quickly, because we'll have to go to audience for questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, make your point, Amit.
Yeah, about putting Ranchi on the map. It's not about how many cricketers from Ranchi go on to play for India, right? As she said, that there has been a Saurav Tiwari story, there is an Ishan Kishan story. But now people are looking at those scorecards of matches where Jharkhand is playing, right? And what it has done is that the entire Dhoni story, 15 years of his career, is that there are people in Ranchi who would be telling, look, a Dhoni can come out of here, so there is a reason to pursue sports. Otherwise, earlier, it was all about, okay, the big towns, there are chances that you might make it to the 11. So, Dhoni and the IPL phenomena, which is very closely linked to him, both have ensured that, you know, a place like Ranchi, more and more
kids are now drawn towards the game and drawn towards making a career out of it.
Sure, and for the right reasons.
Yep.
Now we'll have audience questions, but be in a Dhoni format, quick finishers. Huh? Let's have the questions crisply. Yes, sir.
Hello. So my question is basically regarding the transition phase. So for example, from Dhoni to Kohli, it has been very smooth transition. But when you look to Dada and Dravid, there has been the a small protest in Kolkata against the Dravid, in Bangalore against the Dada. So, and is Dhoni the last, I don't know, it's the right word, the last alpha male of Indian cricket? Because he has the only man who has to manage the selectors or the BCCI president to an extent. Because even Kohli could not do that to the Dada, but
Okay, I'll answer that.
Sure.
The most powerful captain in India was actually Virat Kohli. I don't think Dhoni could manage the selectors as much as he would have liked to. But until Kohli stepped down from captaincy in 2020, his 2020 captain, until then he was the most powerful man in Indian cricket, and this includes Ganguly. Whatever it was. I mean, people will find it strange that Sourav Ganguly was appointed captain series after series. And not, for the whole season or up till this point, up till that point. So, player power has definitely increased in a way, but the moment Kohli decided to step down as T20 captain, he made himself vulnerable to everything, to selectors, to politics, to all of it. Will he be the last alpha male? You hope not, because your captain has to be your alpha male most of the time. So you would hope that some alpha male will come along and bring a lot of alpha males with him.
Yeah.
Hi, I have a question.
And I think Virat Kohli would take great objection to the fact that he was not thought of as an alpha male over Dhoni.
I was thinking, how did you miss Virat Kohli in the entire equation? Of course, it's a book on Dhoni, it's a session on Dhoni. But when you talk about...
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Arvind.
Yeah, I always believed in the idea of an athlete retiring and us asking why rather than when. Very quickly, I love the personal incidents that, Jeet sir actually shared. Would be very incomplete without a little mention about his love for bikes and animals in general. Any incidents that you would
And
want to share?
SUVs as well, maybe SUVs. I think he loves that.
Yeah, look, even when he just came, that image was of his bike, his streaked long hair. So he's always had a fascination for bikes, which as he became more and more famous and had more money, he would buy bigger bikes. We had done an endorsement with him with TVS in those days, and TVS had more of a racing bike made for him, Apache and etc. But in those days, I'm talking of the year 2008 or late 2007 actually, post his World Cup. In those days Harley Davidson was not in India, so he expressed his desire to have one, and we helped in importing a Harley Davidson into India, which was quite a complicated process in those days. It had to come by ship from a dealer in UAE to Calcutta, and then he brought it here. Yeah, he's always had a fascination with bikes, later it's cars, SUVs. He had a Hummer, I think there's a Hummer in Ranchi. About his love for animals, I'm not so sure, but yeah, he has a lot of dogs in his house. Beyond that, I don't know.
Thank you. Very short question, yes sir. Just come to the question straight, yeah. Like Dhoni.
Look, many years into international cricket, I remember very clearly he was asked by a journalist, sports journalist, about Vijay Merchant, and he said, "Who is Vijay Merchant? Who is Vijay Merchant?" So, is this vintage Dhoni or?
No, I don't remember this story.
I know this for a fact. I know this for a fact.
I know that Sehwag, when he was asked, when he and Dravid almost broke a first-class partnership. They said who? It's possible. I mean, I think we do expect our cricketers to have a knowledge of their cricket history, which some do and some don't. And you just have to take it at what it's worth. It doesn't show a lack of respect. I think it's just a lack of access to the information and the stories of Indian cricket history that once they get to know, I'm sure they'll appreciate if you tell them that these are the people who played on open wickets without helmets and, Okay. Yes.
Okay? Do different can also be pronounced in Hindi as do different. दो different धोनी, एक जिसको हम जानते हैं और एक जिसकी हमें तलाश है. As Robert Louis Stevenson said, man is not truly one, but truly two. So, दोनों धोनियों की झलकी आपको इस किताब में मिलेगी. Do different. I'm sure Amit will be happy to sign some copies of the book. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. And thanks to all the panelists. Thank you, Jeet, Sharda, Amit. Thank you so much. One second for a photo.
Okay, so now moving on to our next session titled Tribal and Regional Films, A New Voice and Aesthetic. I would like to invite on stage Niranjan Kujur, Purushottam Kumar, Anurag Lugun in conversation with Anuj Lugun. Thank you very much all the dignitaries. Once again, I would like to invite on stage Niranjan Kujur, Purushottam Kumar and Anurag Lugun in conversation with Anuj Lugun. A huge round of applause.